You still here? Wrench lady thought you'd be retired with the chopper you keep dusting. They all laughed. Until the storm came. Until 12 students went missing in the mountains. Until every certified pilot backed out, and the only one left was her. She didn't argue. She just walked to the old helicopter no one believed in and started the engines. Because some legends don't need a license. They just need a reason. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Flathead County, Montana, wasn't the kind of place that made headlines. It was a land of long winters and short summers where pine trees bowed under the weight of snow. And the wind knew every name. People here didn't say much, but they noticed everything. Just outside Kalispell, nestled at the edge of the forest, sat Station 12, a rescue outpost bare bones, practical, weather-beaten. Its roof sagged under the years, and the paint had given up fighting the cold long ago. That was where Morgan Hayes worked, or rather, where she stayed. No one really remembered when she first arrived. Morgan was somewhere in her mid-40s, though the mountain air and quiet had aged her gently. She wore the same heavy canvas jacket each day, collar turned up against the wind, boots scuffed from engine bays, hands always half-stained with grease. She didn't talk much, didn't go to town functions, didn't even have a mailbox, just a weathered lockbox on the side wall, taped shut. Most people assumed she was just the mechanic, the woman who fixed rotor blades, checked hydraulic lines, and kept the air ambulance running during fire season. Some called her Miss Morgan. Others, usually the newer crew, just said the wrench lady. No one asked questions. Not really, because no one wanted to be rude. And truth be told, Morgan didn't invite company. Still, rumors filled the silence like mist. Some said she was a failed pilot, grounded after a crash. Others whispered she'd flown in a war zone once and lost someone she couldn't save. But those were just stories, the kind people told to explain the unexplainable. What they did know was this: Morgan was always first in, last out, and the helicopters always worked after she touched them. The Bell 412 parked behind Station 12 had more flight hours than any bird in the state, and yet it still purred like a new engine under her care. Morgan never stepped into the cockpit, never asked to. No certifications, no license, at least none on file. But every morning, just before the crew arrived, the hangar lights flicked on, and from outside, you could hear the low hum of diagnostics. Someone, somewhere, was running full system checks long before protocol required it. That someone was Morgan. Of course, she kept her world small. Coffee at 5 more a.m., wrench in hand by 6, lunch alone, always the same thermos. The others didn't mind, didn't mean to be unkind. They were just busy being younger, busier pretending they had it all figured out. Then came Wednesday. It started like every other training day. Fresh snow, sky so clear it cut like glass. The air ambulance Echo 2 was prepped for a simulation run across the valley. Flight Officer Avery Kemp was at the controls. Young, sharp, a bit too sure of himself. Morgan had once seen him load an entire medkit backward and argue it was more efficient. They rolled Echo 2 out just after 10. The crew bantered over comms. Ground staff waved. Morgan stood back, wiping her hands on a rag, eyes never leaving the skids. 15 minutes into warm-up, just as Kemp reached for the collective, he slumped forward. At first, they thought he dropped something. Then the co-pilot shouted. Kemp wasn't responding. His face was pale, his hands limp on the controls. Panic flickered through the crew. Yelling, radio chatter. No one quite knew what to do. And then, Morgan moved. She walked straight past the command trailer, straight to the chopper, eyes locked on the control panel. Back up, she said, calm. No one questioned it. She climbed into the co-pilot seat, not the pilot seat, and flipped 3 switches. Her fingers moved like they knew the sequence by heart. The fuel system gave a sharp whine. The nav screen blinked red. Morgan stared for a moment, then quietly said, "This bird shouldn't be flying." A lieutenant stepped forward. What do you mean? She pointed. Main transfer lines leaking pressure. The digital readers stuck at baseline, but manuals off. That's a pump surge waiting to happen. If he'd taken off. The words hung heavy. Everyone looked at each other, but the lead supervisor, Captain Ronner, shook his head. You're not certified to make that call. Our techs did pre-checks. We're good to go. Morgan didn't argue. She just nodded once and climbed out. Later that evening, while the others grabbed coffee in town or kicked snow off their boots, Morgan walked back into the tool shed behind Hangar 3. She didn't turn on the lights. Instead, she unlocked the old gray cabinet in the corner, the one no one else ever touched. Its hinges creaked softly. Inside, when neatly folded, was a flight suit. Not modern, not military issue. It was pale sand-colored, a NATO patch on one sleeve, and a stitched call sign on the chest, Skyreach 22. Beside it, tucked under a clipboard of yellowing pages, were laminated flight maps of Helmand Province, Afghanistan, marked in pen, arrows and waypoints. She touched one with her thumb, just for a second, then reached up and pulled back her collar. There, beneath the nape of her neck, was a tattoo faded, but unmistakable. A circle of stars, a winged staff, and a caduceus woven with a compass. It wasn't a symbol most people would recognize, but anyone who'd served in the old NATO Medical Airlift Division would know exactly what it meant. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't meant to be. It was the kind of ink you earned in silence, the kind you only showed when someone's life depended on it. Morgan closed the cabinet, locked it again. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just sat down on the worn stool by the workbench and let the silence hold her. Outside, snow began to fall again, light at first, then heavier, the kind of storm that came with no warning. And out past the airfield, somewhere in the dark timberline, a new emergency was quietly beginning. The snow didn't stop overnight. By morning, it had thickened into sheets blowing sideways across the field, coating the rescue pad in silence. Inside Station 12, the comms board blinked red. A weather alert had just come through. Category 4 winter storm, moving fast from the northwest, estimated to hit Flathead County by nightfall. 12 hours. That's all they had. Chief Logan Barrett stood at the central table, jaw tight, radio in hand. He was a solid man graying at the temples, sleeves always rolled up, voice that never needed to yell. But today, that voice was quieter than usual. Group of students, he said, scanning the dispatch log. High school outdoor retreat. 12 kids, 2 chaperones. Camped up past Timberline Ridge. Last check-in was at 1800 yesterday. The room went still. Lost contact just before midnight. Barrett continued. Weather station thinks they're snowed in. Possibly without power, possibly without heat. A tech at the corner table spoke up. We can't get eyes on the site. No drone range in this wind. Barrett exhaled slowly. Okay, who do we have on rotation one by one? The names were called and crossed out. Jensen, family emergency. Luis on rotation in Helena. Nora grounded after surgery. Echo 1, the primary medevac chopper, had been flagged last week for engine imbalance. Still offline. That left Echo 2, an older bird. No mission flight in 2 years, and no certified pilot to fly her. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, a quiet voice came from the rear hangar. I just finished pre-flight on Echo 2, Morgan said. Barrett turned. She was already wearing her flight jacket. Not the department-issued coat, but something older, thicker, sun-faded at the seams. I've replaced the alternator, recalibrated the servos, resynced the terrain mapping software. She continued. Fuel mix is lean for altitude. Pressure line's green. She'll hold. Barrett blinked. You're saying the old bird is flight ready? Morgan nodded. She'll fly. The crew exchanged glances. Then one of the new techs, a young guy named Caden, half chuckled. With all due respect, ma'am, who's flying? Her Morgan didn't answer. She just turned toward the cockpit and began climbing in. Barrett stepped forward. Wait, you're not cleared. Hayes, you're not even on the flight roster. She paused at the edge of the open door, then turned, slow and steady. Do you want those kids back? She asked. Barrett stared. Of course he did. Still, regulations were regulations. He looked at the clipboard on the wall, double-checked the active licenses. According to our system, he said carefully. You haven't logged flight hours since 2011. You don't even have a file. Morgan slid into the seat, fingers moving across the console. Everything lit up, like it remembered her. Barrett shook his head. Where'd you learn to balance fuel loads like that in crosswind conditions? Morgan adjusted the trim slightly. I once had to lift 4 Marines with spinal fractures out of a landing zone under mortar fire in Kandahar. She said, gusts were worse than this. Ground was hotter too. The hangar fell completely silent. It was Caden who spoke first. Wait, did you say Kandahar? Morgan didn't reply. But when she leaned forward to check the transponder, her collar slipped just enough, and for a moment, the back of her neck was visible. A tattoo, black and faded, curved just beneath the hairline. Caden squinted. What is that? I've never seen that unit mark. Barrett took a slow step closer. His face changed. The symbol wasn't military standard. It was older, foreign, a stylized compass wrapped around a medical insignia. Wings extended. He froze. Then, like a puzzle piece snapping into place, he muttered under his breath, Skyreach, 22. The words hung in the air like a storm before thunder. Morgan didn't flinch, didn't explain, just continued with the checklist. Barrett stepped out of the hangar and pulled his personal radio. The call was short, encrypted, routed through an old contact from his days in National Guard logistics. Name's Morgan Hayes, he said. Possible former NATO? Can you run it through legacy pilot records? There was silence, then standby. 2 minutes passed. Then the voice returned. Lower. Sir, that's a ghost file. She flew for a classified medical airlift unit, disbanded 2013. Last recorded mission operation, Halcyon, July 2000. She pulled 11 wounded out of enemy artillery range. Night flight, no escort. Barrett swallowed. Any decorations? There was a pause. 3. One of them was recommended for Medal of Valor. She declined. Barrett lowered the radio slowly. Inside the hangar, Echo 2 was humming now, steady, even. The wind howled against the roof, but the blades spun smooth as silk. He stepped back in, eyes fixed on Morgan. You flew under Skyreach 22, he asked. She didn't look up, just flipped one final switch. The cockpit display turned green. Yes, she said, but I don't fly for medals. I fly when someone needs to come home. Barrett studied her. Everything about her posture had changed, not arrogant, not defiant, just complete. He turned to the crew. All right, he said. We're flying. Caden blinked. Sir Barrett nodded. She's got the bird, loaded up with blankets, med kits, anything warm. We're going now. But Chief, she's not. Barrett raised a hand. Anyone with objections can file a report in the morning. Right now, we have children on that mountain, and I've just realized the best pilot we've got has been hiding in our hangar for 10 years. The crew moved fast. Within 15 minutes, Echo 2 was stocked, rotors rising into full spin. Morgan sat steady in the cockpit, headset in place, eyes calm. Barrett stepped beside her window. Anything you need from me? Morgan looked straight ahead. Tell the parents to leave a light on. We'll be back before dark. The skids lifted slow and steady. The snow swirled in a wide arc as the old bell took to the sky, its frame humming with memory. Barrett watched until it vanished into the low clouds, shoulders heavy, but heart steadier than it had been all day. He turned to Caden. Next time you call her the wrench lady, he said, make sure you're talking about the one who just flew into a blizzard to bring somebody's kid home. The clouds swallowed her whole. Visibility dropped to 50 feet. Wind screamed across the nose of the helicopter like it wanted to tear the skin off the frame. But Echo 2 held steady. Inside the cockpit, Morgan Hayes adjusted the trim by feel. Not by numbers, not by instruments. She didn't trust what the screen told her. She trusted what the bird was whispering beneath her hands. It wasn't just flying, it was listening. Behind her, a backpack full of med kits rattled against the cabin wall. Barrett's words still echoed in her headset. If anyone has a problem, they can file it after the kids are home. She hadn't answered him. She didn't need to, because her answer was already written in the sound of these blades cutting through snow and wind. The radio crackled. Echo 2, this is Station 12. We're patching through a signal, possibly from one of the students. Weak, but readable. Static buzzed. Then a small, frightened voice broke through. Hello, can anyone hear me? Morgan leaned in. Copy. This is Echo 2. I've got you. Another pause. Then are you coming for us? Morgan's voice didn't waver. I'm already in the air. Sweetheart, you just hang tight. I'll be there soon. She didn't say how bad the conditions were, didn't mention the downdrafts, didn't say that her flight plan didn't technically exist. Some truths didn't help. Instead, she lowered altitude, letting the mountain pull her closer. The terrain up ahead was sharp rock spires buried under white. Any wrong move meant disaster. She traced the old ridge lines from memory. This wasn't her first time in terrain like this. Only difference was, this time, no one had her back. The storm thickened. Snow came in heavy bursts, blinding even the thermal feed. Radar pinged uselessly, so Morgan shut it off. She didn't need electronics. She had instincts. Wind curled up one side of the canyon and shoved the rotor hard. The bird rocked left. She adjusted, corrected, breathed once, steady and clean. Then, through the blinding white, a flare, green smoke. She banked right, dropping fast, her eyes scanning the valley floor. Below a cluster of shapes huddled against a rock outcropping, they had stayed low, smart. She circled once, keeping the wind at her back. The only spot to land was a flat patch no wider than a truck bed, and half of it was covered in drift. She came in slow. One skid touched the icy ground. The other balanced half on packed snow, half against a frozen boulder. The chopper tilted. Any more and it would roll. She didn't move, didn't blink. She keyed the mic. This is Echo 2. I've got visual. I need everyone ready to move. We don't have long. A new voice responded, older, breathless. This is Mr. Connors. I'm a chaperone. We've got 12 students. One of them, Emily, she's hypoglycemic, not responsive. Morgan's voice came low. Bring her first. Load fast. I won't cut the engines. Snow blasted across the site as the door slid open. A tall man in a soaked parka rushed forward, carrying a small girl wrapped in 2 coats. Behind him, teenagers moved in pairs, stumbling, half crawling, faces pale, lips blue. Morgan held the controls firm. Rotor wash churned the snow around her like a blizzard inside a blender. Emily was the last aboard. Connors jumped in behind her. All in, he shouted. Morgan didn't wait. She pulled up. The left skid scraped ice as they lifted, then cleared. The black bell surged into the sky behind them, just as the outcropping vanished in the white. An avalanche broke loose from the slope above. A wave of snow thundered down right where they had been moments before. It missed them by seconds. Inside the cabin, no one spoke. Breath came in gasps. Hands trembled. But every eye turned toward the front, toward the woman flying them home. Back at Station 12, Barrett stood on the tarmac, headset pressed to his ear. The incoming signal was faint but alive. Echo 2 en route, multiple passengers. One critical. ETA 8 minutes. Barrett exhaled. His shoulders dropped like he'd been holding his breath since morning. Copy that. Echo 2. Pad is clear. EMS standing by. The sky over the valley was still roaring, but through the storm, a single black speck appeared. Echo 2. It dropped into the approach vector like it had been flying this route forever. No wobble, no strain, just presence. As it came into view, the flight crew, those who'd watched Morgan tinker with old engine mounts for years, stepped forward in silence. Barrett stood at the front, arms crossed, jaw set. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. The bell touched down as soft as falling snow. Morgan didn't shut down the engine. She waited until the last child had been pulled out by medics, until Emily was whisked into the ambulance. Only then did she power off the blades. The whine died slowly, fading into the wind. Morgan opened the door. She stepped out onto the pad, no celebration, no pose, just boots on snow, eyes forward. Barrett walked up to her. She met his gaze. For a moment, the storm seemed to quiet around them. He didn't salute. He didn't hand her a medal. He just nodded once, deep, slow, final, and Morgan nodded back. Behind them, a small crowd had gathered. Volunteers, fire crews, local ranchers. They didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just stood still, like they were watching something they didn't fully understand but finally recognized. The quiet woman who had fixed their machines had just saved 12 lives, and she never even raised her voice. Morgan didn't linger. She walked past the crowd, toward the hangar, hands cold but steady. And if anyone watched closely, they might have seen her pause, just for a second, and place her gloved hand against the fuselage of the bird she'd just brought back to life. The wind picked up again, but no one moved. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest kind of respect. The snow finally stopped the next morning, not all at once. It just slowed, then softened, then vanished into silence. Station 12 woke up different that day, not because the winds had gone, but because something deeper had shifted. At the edge of the helipad, footprints had frozen overnight, 12 small pairs, and one set of heavier boots that didn't walk back for applause. Inside the hangar, Morgan was already at work. She never said a word about the flight, never told the crew what it felt like to fly blind and come home with 13 lives. But the others, they had started watching her differently. They didn't hover, didn't flatter, but their eyes carried something new. Respect. By noon, the local paper had run the headline. The woman at Station 12 flew through the blizzard. Below it, a photo blurry, raw, real. Morgan, seated beside a stretcher. One hand resting on a little girl's shoulder, her eye soft, exhausted, but calm. The story spread quickly, faster than snowmelt. By afternoon, regional news picked it up. By evening, a satellite truck was parked across from the diner. Barrett turned them away. All you need to know, he told the camera crew, is that 12 families got their kids back because someone didn't ask for permission to do the right thing. The next day, a black SUV with federal plates pulled into Station 12. Not loud, not with fanfare. A tall man stepped out in uniform dark blue, stars at the collar. Barrett met him near the fueling station. They didn't shake hands. "I'm told you had someone flying without clearance," the man said. Barrett nodded. "I'm told she saved a dozen lives," the man added. Barrett nodded again. Then the man lowered his voice. "We've been looking for her," he said. "Not to punish, to recognize." Barrett didn't answer. The man looked over his shoulder toward the hangar. "She declined the award once before, said the mission was enough, but some things we need to get right." Barrett finally spoke. "You do what you need to, but don't expect her to stand on a podium." That afternoon, a plaque arrived unannounced. Brushed steel. Simple. No rank. No medals. Just a name, Morgan Hayes, and beneath it, Skyreach 22. Pilot, Flathead County Rescue. She never left. We just didn't see her. They mounted it on the memorial wall next to the names of 3 pilots who had died in rescue missions over the past 20 years. No speeches, just a moment of quiet, and a few crew members who stood a little straighter after reading it. 1 week later, Station 12 resumed normal training. The snow had turned to slush. New recruits had arrived. During a lunch break, a young trainee, barely 20, looked up from his sandwich and asked, "Hey, who taught you that skid hold landing? I saw the replay." It was unreal. The instructor didn't blink. He pointed out the window, toward the far side of the pad, toward the woman with sleeves rolled up, wiping down the rotor blades of Echo 2. "That woman right there," he said. "She taught us all." The trainee stared. Morgan didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just kept wiping, because that's who she was. She didn't teach with lectures. She taught with action, and she didn't need applause to know she mattered. Later that week, one of the teenagers from the rescue, Emily, the girl with low blood sugar, returned with her family. She brought a drawing, crayon on construction paper, a helicopter, flying through snow, with one word above it, safe. She handed it to Morgan without saying a thing, then hugged her, tight. Morgan blinked a few times, but never let go of the paper. Barrett watched from a distance. That evening, he sat at his desk, writing the monthly report. In the section marked Notable Incidents, he paused for a long while, then typed an unauthorized flight was conducted during emergency conditions. Pilot Morgan Hayes. Outcome, 13 lives saved. Recommendation, reconsider what defines qualified. The report was sent. No one challenged it. Spring came slow to Flathead County, but it came. Snow melted. Crews prepped new flight paths. The hangar filled with the usual banter, boots, and fuel fumes. But something had changed. Not loudly, just enough to notice. Now, when Morgan walked through, people nodded. The younger ones cleared space when she needed the console. The older ones just listened more. She hadn't changed. They had. One late afternoon, as clouds rolled in low over the ridge again, a rookie pilot climbed into Echo 2. As he adjusted the seat, he found something etched faintly near the throttle. It wasn't graffiti. It was deliberate. 3 small words, bring them home. No one claimed to write it, but everyone knew who had. Back in the hangar, Morgan was restocking the medkits. Alone. As usual, Barrett stopped by the doorway. "Storm's coming again," he said. Morgan glanced at the sky. He added, "You going to be ready?" She didn't answer, just zipped the last pouch and slung it over her shoulder. Barrett smiled, then turned away. Behind him, Morgan stepped into the wind. The kind of wind that once tried to push her down. Now, it made room. Because people finally understood she wasn't a backup plan. She wasn't a mystery. She wasn't just a mechanic. She was the kind of pilot who didn't wait for orders. The kind who flew when no one else would, and landed when it mattered most. That's what real legends do. They don't rise for praise. They rise when others fall. And when the next storm comes, everyone at Station 12 will know the truth. Morgan Hayes will be ready because she always has been.